see what he can do out in the open field. I think he will get the opportunity to. He will get the opportunity to to get a little bit more playing time than he would have with Rod there in the lineup. But at the same time, I do think in terms of all around backs and someone that can really do the most to to kind of shoulder that burden that the team's going to have now that Rod Chisholm's not available. I think Tyshawn is the best option to do that. He's a for a true freshman, he's a pretty complete back. He's a powerful kid. And it's something where it's hard to make that adjustment mid-game at ECU. When Rod Chisholm went down there in the third quarter, it was, their options were limited. Obviously, they're not going to lift the red shirt off of Holloway right there in the middle of the game. So, I mean, it's, we kind of had limited options where now we've got a full week knowing that Chisholm's not going to be available. And it'll be interesting to see what conclusion they come to. But I am hoping that we see Tyshawn Holloway on Saturday getting some pretty significant reps.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I think he's going to need to be out there in order to exactly what he was saying, run the ball up the middle. Frazier can do it. He's a big guy, but he's a former linebacker. He's not. He's only been running back for a year, 2 years now. So I mean, he's used to hitting people who have the ball, not not running over people trying to run him over. So it's Holloway's going to be essential for us to keep that running game going, and I'm hoping, exactly like you are, we're going to lift his red shirt. And the ironic thing is that we were going to redshirt him. I think that speaks volumes for the depth in our running back core because, like you said, he had offers from FBS and BCS schools, and he came here because he wanted to play. But we were still going to redshirt him. So I think that it just speaks volumes for the depth we have at running back. And I really, one way or the other, I think we will be okay if we do still redshirt Holloway. But I think we need to play him.
I agree. It's just it's one of those things. It'd be a great luxury to have. It'd be awesome if we could redshirt him this year. Because I think the coaching staff was right on it. If Chisholm and Miller were healthy, I really don't think you want to waste a year of eligibility on a kid that talented when he's going to basically be the third option and kind of getting just the sporadic carry here and there. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's an option we're going to have anymore. So we'll see what they do. We could tell a pretty noticeable drop off and. We really stalled out in the red zone. After Chisholm went out, we got the ball inside the 20 a couple times and weren't able to get those tough yards and got stopped on third and fourth and short. So you could tell it made a difference. And on the flip side, unfortunately, with Doug Middleton being hurt, he's out for the year. As you said, the kind of silver lining to that is he should have no problem getting a medical redshirt this year and having 3 more years of eligibility left. And just like kind of like how I mentioned with Chisholm, we could see a drop off after he went down. When Doug Middleton went out there in the third quarter, it was at that point still a 14-13 game, or maybe it was at that point actually still a 14-10 game, but it was still a very, very tight game. Rio Johnson was not doing much through the air at that point. They hadn't had really any kind of sustained drives at all to that point. And as soon as he went out, true freshman Aaron Craw, who, to be clear, I think is a really talented kid, and I think he's a guy that's going to end up being a very good player for us. But he's a true freshman. It's his first college game, and he just really got thrown into the fire there right in the middle of the third quarter of a tightly contested game. And East Carolina, as any well-coached team would do, they started picking on him. And once that happened, they started hitting. They got some short routes over there across the middle. I believe both his touchdown passes were on Aaron Craw, and so it's a tough situation to throw a kid like that into. Hopefully, if he does get the start this week, he should be more prepared. He's gotten that first game under his belt, and he'll go into the week knowing that he's going to be starting. But if he's not able to, if he is not named the starter, I think the only other option we have out there would be Roger Walker. Depending on his health, he's still day to day. Apparently, he's battling an illness. He's a guy we would love to have back in the rotation. He started 9 games at corner last year. He's really, outside of Demetrius McCray and Troy Sanders, the only one in that secondary with significant starting experience. So we'd love to get him back, and if he's healthy, I think that'll be a big boost to our secondary. Otherwise, outside of Roger Walker and Aaron Craw, we're relatively thin at corner. We do have some pieces that we can work with, with Joel Ross and Henry Barnes and a couple other guys back there in the secondary. But in terms of the kids you'd really want in there, man coverage, playing corner, Roger Walker and Aaron Carr are two best options, and I'm hoping that Roger Walker's back healthy and we can kind of have a pretty solid rotation of corners getting ready to place Montana because regardless of who lines up in the secondary, they're going to have to be ready to perform because Montana's bringing in a fast-paced offense and they're really going to put them to the test.
Definitely, and with Aaron Crawl, what I like about him is he came in and seemingly didn't miss a step when Middleton came out. Yeah, he was picked on a little bit. He allowed a few catches, but the one touchdown catch that went on him, it was actually great coverage and just a great catch by Justin Hardy. So I like what I saw out of him. I mean, a true freshman coming in, 50,000 in that heat and guarding their number one receiver, who the commentators said was the best receiver in Conference USA. And the only reason he got the touchdown was because he made a tremendous play. So I liked what I saw out of him. But Roger Walker, exactly what he said, he's got that starting experience already from last year. So hopefully he can get in there. We do have some pieces that I think we haven't seen necessarily yet in the DBs, but at the same time, they're all young, so it's definitely going to be a learning curve for all of them. I think the good thing coming up for this weekend is Montana does like to run the ball a lot, so that's kind of a good thing in the fact that our front seven looked really good, but at the same time, they've only played one game so far this season, so they might have been running because South Dakota didn't have a strong front seven, and this week they know we do, so they might be passing a lot more. So who knows? They do run that fast-paced offense. So either way, I like Aaron Crawl and I like Roger Walker. I still wish Middleton was in there, though.
Absolutely, and I don't want to sound like I'm coming down on Aaron Crawl for the job that he did because as I mentioned, he's a true freshman. I think he's a really talented kid. I think he's going to be a very good player for us. It's just a real tough situation. It's a tight game. It's right there in the heat of the battle, and a guy that was expected to start and up to that point had really been doing an excellent job. Doug Middleton goes down and he gets thrown right back in there, and you're right. He was. You could tell he's sitting there, from where I was sitting in the stands, he wasn't sitting around on his hands. He wasn't surprised that he was going in there. He grabbed his helmet, went in there, and found his man. And I do think he did a commendable job. But obviously, given the choice between a true freshman that hadn't seen any game action at the college level and Demetrius McCray on the other side, who's a first-team All-American and NFL prospect, they're going to be picking on him, and they work the line, they work their rotations out so that they got their best receiver and all-conference receiver, one of the best receivers in Conference USA, on a kid who's not as big or physical as Doug Middleton and also very inexperienced, and they're able to take advantage of it. So I definitely respect the job that he did. I think given the circumstances, there's not much more you could have asked out of him, and it's not exactly like Rio Johnson just started slinging the ball all over the place and and going wild on us once he went in there, but he was able to take advantage of him a couple of times. So I think he did a commendable job, but as you said, it would have been big for us if we could have kept Doug in there.
Definitely, and exactly like you said, they're going to be put up to the test against the fast-paced Montana offense. So, and keeping on topic of the Montana team, we're now actually going to hear from Brent Wahlberg, who, like I said at the beginning, is well known among the Grizzlies fan base for his weekly previews that he posts on egrizz.com. He also posts recaps and practice reports. And he's a lifelong Montana fan, and he's very plugged into the state of the Grizz program. And he was kind enough to come speak with us and to talk about the upcoming game. So here we go.
Bryden, if you want to just go ahead and get the.
All right. Apparently I uploaded the wrong clip. This was a recorded interview, and apparently I uploaded the wrong clip. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward it a little bit and start playing again.
How do you think the Montana team is clicking? Pretty eventful offseason, both with some personnel losses due to some off-field stuff and also some changes in the coaching staff. So at this point, although granted we're only one game in, how do you think the Montana team is clicking with the new staff, and what kind of learning curve are you expecting from them?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting to watch this group because I've followed a little bit of, some off-season similarities between our two teams, and we've got a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator who was promoted, and a new special teams coach, and an O-line coach who just did tackles last year, and now he's doing the whole O-line. So we've had a lot of transition in our staff. Of course, we opened spring camp with our starting quarterback suspended. Then he comes back, but our head coach gets fired. And then in the summer, our starting quarterback is suspended, indefinitely. So it's been interesting to see the transition that this team's gone through. And what's been really interesting is in the practices and in talking with some of these guys, talking with some of the staff, and hearing the feedback coming out of the athletic department. It's amazing how well these guys have handled adversity and how they've responded to it. The day after Coach Robin Pflugrad at the time was fired by the university president, the following spring camp practice was pretty sloppy. They took spring break, came back. We had our new interim coach in place, and it was almost like, in terms of production on the field and consistency and the lack of errors, it was like they hadn't missed a beat. And then, we see kind of the same thing. They opened up in the fall, and again, it looked like a team looking for its identity. And within a few practices, these guys were fired up. The defense and the offense were, at each other relentlessly. Quarterback play was just improving on a daily basis. It's really impressive to see what these guys went through and how they have been able to respond to it as a group in its entirety. Learning curve, it's going to be a sharp one. I mean, we're a young team. We graduated 9 starters on defense, and I think it was 5 on offense last year. A lot of our guys, you look at our defensive starting group, and only one of the projected starters didn't play last year, and that was our cornerback, Nate Harris, who redshirted. The rest of the guys played a bunch. A lot of them didn't start. We went on the road twice in what I would consider hostile environments. Played at Tennessee. The Tennessee crowd, I don't think, made that hostile because they probably viewed us as a bit of a rollover team. And we also played at MSU, which was, about 20,000 strong. So not as much as what you guys will have in the house on Saturday night, but pretty, amped up and wild crowd, and Grizz went out there, handled business, and laid it to them good. So I'm hoping that some of these younger guys observed and took it in and can respond to it. But it's going to be a big test for them for sure.
Great. Yeah, we're, unfortunately kind of the same situation in a couple of regards. We had a couple of guys that, were suspended from the team indefinitely. We have a couple of guys that are going to be out for this game for suspension. And then in the opener had a couple of guys that got hurt that are going to be missing this game as well. And also breaking in, have a new offensive coordinator, new O-line coach, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. The whole offensive staff is new. So it's going to be a little bit of learning on the fly on both sides. But, I just feel like with the way that both these programs recruit and just kind of, continue to funnel quality athletes in and out of there, I think it's going to still be I think the game should still be played at a pretty high level.
Oh, yeah, I agree. It should be an entertaining game.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. And I just want to reiterate again, Brent, for coming on with us tonight. And you had mentioned your projected starting quarterback was suspended and then came back and then suspended indefinitely, and that's Jordan Johnson. And in a first game without Jordan Johnson against South Dakota on Saturday, aside from one costly interception, Trent McKinney, who's now the starting quarterback, he had a pretty solid debut. He completed 26 for 32 passes and had 214 yards to 8 different receivers, which is pretty solid. And then on top of that, he also had 2 touchdowns. So how would you rate his progress so far as he prepares for the test in what you said, a hostile environment coming in the Rock on Saturday?
You bet. And add in, too, Trent also ran for almost 60 yards, too.
Correct.
So,
yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. Trent's a redshirt freshman. He came here, 18-year-old kid out of Hawaii last year. And it was kind of looking like Jordan Johnson was, only a true sophomore last year. So it was looking like Trent was going to probably not be, really thrust into a full-time starting role for another couple of years. But, upon things starting to look, and I saw there was a quote that came back from Nick Delaney, I believe, about this, in June, as it looked like